If you could please take seats, and those of you in the back, please move up front. We have plenty of seating up front. We've got a great panel. You want to be able to hear them. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Doug Hulkin, President and CEO of the National Apartment Association, and welcome to the NAA Green Conference. We are pleased that you have joined us here in Baltimore. I hope that everyone enjoyed last night's opening reception. Thank you again to American Utility Management for sponsoring that event. I'd like all of us to take a moment of silence to acknowledge the tragedy of yesterday's bombings in Boston. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families of the victims and the wounded. Thank you. The NAA Green Conference is back as it journeys into the business side of sustainability in the rental housing marketplace. During the conference, you will hear best practices derived from real-life case studies from apartment communities, learn about products and services that you can take back to the office and turn into immediate savings to your community and residents, and hear about the processes needed to design and build new communities that meet sustainability objectives for your properties. I would like to personally thank the Green Task Force Chair, Scott Wilkerson, for his work on putting together this conference over the last year, as well as the NAA Green Task Force members. Thank you for your contributions to the industry. This conference, as all our conferences, would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. Please join me in thanking the 2013 NAA Green Conference sponsors. As I call the companies' names, I ask that representatives from those companies please stand so we can acknowledge your ongoing support and continued participation in NAA's activities. And I would ask that you hold your applause until we have acknowledged all of the companies and the individuals who stand. Our event sponsors: Appliance Warehouse, American Utility Management, Energy Advisory Service, EPS Audit, Gas South, Green Mountain Energy, Green Nuit, HD Supply, HydroPoint, Invisible Waste Services, NWP Services Corporation, On-Site, Sherwin-Williams, Valet Waste. I'd also like to thank our media partners: Affordable Housing Finance, Apartment Finance, Multifamily Executive, and Units Magazine. I encourage all of you to visit the sponsors at their booths outside the ballroom in the foyer area the next 2 days to learn about their products and services that you can take back with you to your office. Thank you to all of our sponsors for your generous support. Everyone has a contribution envelope at your chair. We are asking for a small minimum contribution of only $20 to either the NAA PAC or the BGF, our Better Government Fund. The In It to Win It NAA PAC raffle is sponsored by Valet Waste. Donate to either the PAC or the Better Government Fund for your chance to win $500 cash. The federal government has the ability to impact all of our companies by passing legislation that might limit our ability to grow. I ask that you get involved. Your contribution will allow us to contribute to members of Congress or organizations that support the rental housing industry. Your completed donation envelope will place you into the drawing for $500 cash. Contribution envelopes can be dropped off at the NAA booth in the foyer. The winner will be announced at Wednesday's closing general session luncheon featuring Andrew Winston. You don't want to miss it because you must be present to win. To kick off today's events, I want to thank Energy Advisory Service and Gas South for sponsoring this morning's Executive Viewpoint, Green State of the Industry General Session. And now, please allow me to introduce the moderator of this session, NAA's Chairman of the Board, Alex Jacque, with McKinley, Inc., Ann Arbor, Michigan. Alex.
Thank you, Doug. Good morning. We're fortunate to have with us this morning 4 executive officers of companies, both regional and national in scope, that have lots of experience with green strategies and tools that they've implemented that have impacted their properties, not just financially, but through marketing, leasing, resident retention. They've also had experiences in new development as well as rehabbing existing properties, and we're excited to have an opportunity to hear about the successes they've experienced as well as some of the challenges in embracing sustainability and looking at green initiatives that will have an impact not only to their companies but hopefully to our environment and long term. So without spending a lot of time chatting, I'd like to introduce our distinguished panel so that we can spend as much time hearing from them as possible. So to my far right is Ms. Cindy Clare, who is President of Kettler Management. Next to her is Steve Halsey. Welcome to the female panel.
The token Mel.
President and CEO of Amley Residential. Next to Steve is Julie Smith, President of Bizzuto Management. And last but not least, Sue Ansell, President and CEO of Gables. I'd like to start the discussion by having each of the panelists talk a little bit about their favorite initiative within their companies, things that they're seeing and something that is particularly near and dear to their heart that they've been able to implement at their companies that has made a significant impact on green. So Cindy, would you like to start?
Sure. I'm going to break it up into 2 because I never follow what I'm asked to do. Part of that is because on our new developments, one of the things that we've seen is that, obviously all of the green, but the smoke-free buildings, that has been a huge success for us at our properties, and not only from a marketing standpoint, but just from a healthy standpoint. And we're implementing that at a lot of our newer developments. On the affordable side, we also have a large affordable portfolio. We've been able to implement savings measures using some of the systems or some of the opportunities out there for free services, replacing thermostats with digital thermostats. So we've been able to help our residents reduce their consumption without it costing our owners a lot of money.
Thanks, Cindy. Steve, how about you?
Well, in 2007, we certainly felt the earth change as we began the recession, and at Amley, we knew that we needed to make several changes in order to stay competitive and stay viable in the marketplace. At that time, we were about 93% garden-style apartments stretched across the United States. And we certainly understood that in this current environment, maintaining and keeping those assets up to speed in terms of their energy efficiency was going to be very costly. So we made a very conscious decision to move to more TOD, transportation-oriented developments. We are now at 32% garden-style apartments. We continue to build. We've got $1.6 billion in the pipeline right this minute, 26 new developments. And we are working very hard to make sure that every one of those new developments are LEED certified, either silver or gold, because we believe that that is the responsible way of treating the environment, treating our residents, and making sure that our investors are well taken care of in the future.
Thanks, Steve. Julie?
If I sort of put it in 2 buckets, I would say that the sort of the biggest opportunity has been in energy savings at the properties through bulk purchasing of green energy. With deregulation, we're able to actually buy green energy with renewable energy certificates, which has been exciting, and that's a nice thing to be able to market to your properties, that you're actually conditioning properties with renewable energy. So that's been fun, and that's something that someone has to sort of watch every day because the cost of energy changes all the time. That's been a nice opportunity. But I agree with Cindy that the local utility companies have been great partners in helping us change out thermostats, change out lighting, where we've been able to see some significant bottom line savings to the properties. Utilities is always in the top 4 operating expenses for the properties. So we've really been focusing on that from just a value creation opportunity. And like Steve, we open up a lot of new properties. Just about all of them have some designation today, which means that there are a lot of fun requirements like transportation management plans and resident education programs. And so we've been working a lot with car shares and zip cars and bike shares and that sort of thing. And so that's been sort of particularly in urban areas, a really fun marketing opportunities to the properties. So value creation there, we'd like to think.
Super. Sue?
Just to make it more complicated, we like to break things into 4 buckets. we think about our sustainable efforts in the new development, new construction area. We think about it in our existing operations. We think about it from our corporate standpoint, and we think about it from our resident education as well as our associate education, and have a lot of similarities to the things that you guys have talked about, so I won't repeat some of those. But one of the things that we did early on with regards to our ongoing daily operations, it's a lot easier to impact new construction and make a bigger difference because you're building it at the time. And like you guys, we've said every new community will have some sort of certification. But on our ongoing operations, we went to all of our vendors and partnered with them and created green catalogs for use for our associates so that it makes it much easier for them to make certain that every product that we are buying and using on our communities has sustainable features. And that's really helped us in our marketing to our residents as well as to our associates to remind them of the importance of it. Look, this is as you said, Steve, it's the right thing to do, and I think all of us are on the panel because our firms believe that, and so we are thinking creatively about how to implement and structure. But that's a point of difference where we're spending some time.
Okay, well, clearly a huge commitment on your parts to green initiatives of a variety of kinds. Let's talk a little bit about new development. You're all in the new development business. The good news is there's demand and lots of new stuff in the pipeline, but municipalities are requiring some very different kinds of things of developers that are challenges for, I'm sure, for each of you. So let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the areas in which you're developing and kind of what that means as you move forward in terms of cost and how you market the properties. Who wants to start? Steve, you want to start, and then we'll kind of bounce around?
Well, we are developing mostly in Florida, Atlanta, Chicago, Denver, and Texas. We do also have 2 developments in Washington, the state of Washington. Each of those municipalities require different things, as all of you know. And what we are trying to do as a company is to stay ahead of those requirements and to be very proactive in terms of what they may ask or what they will require moving forward. That is why we have taken the approach that we are going to be very green and we are going to be very proactive when it comes to the certifications for our properties in terms of LEED certifications. Now, whether LEED is the most perfect form of measuring the sustainability of a property, that I think can be discussed and debated forever. But we feel that it is a very solid standard in the industry, and if we are able to maintain and build our properties to a certain level, then we get around some of the issues that are facing us on the municipalities. Municipalities that we're building in want denser product, they want smaller units, they want self-sustained buildings with retail, they want some sort of recyclable systems, they want transportation to be local, and we are trying to meet those demands through our LEED certifications and the way that we are approaching the entitlement process.
How does that impact your costs?
With $1.6 billion development right now, we believe the added cost is about $26 million to be LEED certified, either silver or gold. Obviously, that's a rounding error for $1.6 billion. The exit strategy is yet to be proved out. We believe that there will be some sort of value created either through cap rate compression for a new asset that is LEED certified, or some other viable benefit on the exit. That quite hasn't been proven yet, which is a good example of two assets that we have now acquired and one we're selling in Dallas. One of them is about a mile and, well, they're both a mile and a half apart. Our 10-year-old property is selling at the same cap rate as the brand new property that's in lease up that is gold certified. And so I don't think that green will ever trump location, but I think that to our residents and the ability to get maximum rents, it will have value over time as they get to understand what LEED means and what that environmental impact will have in their living environment.
Okay. Julie, you work in some challenging municipalities, and you also have a very impressive list of institutional clients. Talk a little bit about what you've seen as well as what the demands are from the institutional clients that you work with.
Well, they, it's interesting because the institutions are very concerned about LEED certification for the exit. They're worried about if you don't go through the process of having your property certified, that you will at some point in time take a hit on value. So it's sort of like putting a swimming pool in. They want to make sure not having enough parking. It sort of becomes one of those things that it sort of goes into the value equation. So in just about every case, a property will get a green certification if it's funded by a pension fund or an insurance company today. They also have gotten pretty organized in terms of sustainability, and most of them will have someone who's in charge of sustainability, and the laundry list of reporting requirements varies depending on who they are, but certainly, they're using, we're reporting usage in some form at most properties. We need to have sustainability strategies, and it becomes part of the whole budgeting process. So, they're looking at it more from savings, though, because these are investments, and they're really looking. Most of the institutions are appraising their properties on a quarterly basis, and so what they're really looking for is that 10 to 20% reduction in utility expenses that will add more value to the property. So, but the reporting, it's been a little complicated because the reporting mechanisms are a little clunky, if you will. They're really designed more for commercial office buildings, so it's not a perfect fit. And so there's been a fair amount of, I think, of trial and error in terms of that reporting.
Okay, so for those software developers out there that are listening, we need a better system for
Make it easy
reporting
for us. Yeah, make it easy for us.
Take the clunky away.
Yeah.
Any particularly interesting markets where you had specific demands from municipalities as part of developments? That you
yeah,
share?
like Boston, forget it. If you're going to do something in Boston, it's going to have to be LEED because they're going to, particularly in Cambridge, they're going to be so crazy about it, and which is interesting because LEED does not mean cheaper in terms of operating expenses. So a case in point, we're working on a project in Cambridge where how cold it gets in Boston, and if it's not cold, it's really, really hot. There's not much in the middle. And they'll have 100% outdoor air requirement, which means you're bringing everything in from the outside, getting it to that 70-degree temperate level. And that becomes very expensive. So we've actually seen our utility costs in some of our green buildings actually more expensive than our brown buildings, I guess, if you will. Arlington County, you might as well go all the way with that. All you need to do is go non-smoking and then you're LEED. Montgomery County here is very tough. And Baltimore, we're doing a lot of development here in Baltimore. They're not as difficult. But we have so much salvageable materials that we can use in buildings, and we've got a project over at Fells Point called Union Wharf, and it sort of looks like a recreated wharf, if you will. So you get LEED points for that. But Washington's tough. And in Washington, for instance, if you're doing a new project in Washington, they'll require that you put in bicycle storage for 50% of the units. And the bicycle storage has to be ADA accessible, so you can't sort of shove all these bikes in a bike rack. So that takes up a lot of space in your garage. So each of these municipalities has their own nuances that tend to complicate things a little.
Interesting. Sue, what do you see?
Well, I would, similar to what you've heard, you know, we develop in DC as well, and for us, what we see in that area is LEED is sort of the gold standard that the DC area focuses on. That's also a little bit true in Austin, although Austin has its own green building code. The rest of the municipalities that we develop in Southern California, Houston and Dallas, South Florida, Atlanta. Florida is in the process of coming up with a Florida Green Building Code. Atlanta typically goes with Earthcraft. Austin is a combination of the Austin Green Building Code and LEED. Houston uses the 2009 Energy Building Code. Austin is actually considering moving up to the 2012 Green Building Code. Dallas has a combination of LEEDs or other things. San Diego is something entirely different. So the point is that every market, there is not a cookie cutter approach that works. We have 31% of our portfolio today that has some form of certification or another, and what we build today is primarily not garden, it's more infill location, concrete construction design, and some of the things that we have done in the past, you know, you've heard us talk about rainwater collection for irrigation, capturing the condensation from the HVAC systems for irrigation systems. We've started seeing VRV, or variable refrigerant volume technology, and in the past that's just been used for the common area. We actually have our first building that's under construction that will be 100% VRV technology, so that's new and will hopefully save some costs. We've got properties that have building management systems. We'll probably talk about that a little bit later. You know, the acceptance of that by residents is challenging at times. A lot of electric vehicle charging stations, you know, focus on that. You were talking about bike storage. We have in Austin not only the requirement for the bike storage, but also the requirement for a bike repair center. So you have to provide the equipment and that. So one of the more interesting things and consistent things now and the new requirements is a reduction in water usage, 20% reduction in water usage, or in some cases in Southern California, you're designing the standard so that the unit uses no more than 100 gallons of water a day. So if you have a big family, that can be a challenge. And it also, something that's unique to California is light pollution. There are requirements on the reduction in light pollution. So those are some of the more unique things.
So not only do you have challenges with meeting sustainability requirements, they're so different geographically that you've got to have a lexicon of terms and what's mandated in particular municipalities.
It's very,
Interesting.
very local. And
Interesting.
with respect to costs, similar to what Steve said, probably 2 to 3% increase in costs.
Okay. We'll also have to issue a glossary of terms and a list of acronyms. So we've got TODs and VRVs, and I'm sure
We've got more to come.
I'm sure you do. Cindy, kind of following up, other issues?
Everything that everybody has said is exactly right. Not only are we having to build in one of our buildings in Arlington bike storage, bike repair, but a shower, because if people ride their bikes to work, which is what Arlington County would like, then they need a place to shower so that they can. So we're seeing a lot more, particularly on the transportation, like everybody else, we build in a lot of urban infill near public transportation. And Arlington County is also even pushing down the number of parking spaces that they want you to build because they want to encourage people to use public transportation. So we're seeing this real push. Some of the proffers that are being asked for now are that we provide smart cards, which is for the subway system, to our employees versus just giving them to residents. We have jurisdictions that have transportation management plans, as Julie mentioned. All of those things, and it's not just going from state to state. As Sue said, it's municipalities. You can be just developing in the DC region, and what you do in one municipality is going to be very different. Fairfax County is very different than Arlington County, even though they abut one another. And so it does, you have to pay attention to it. It does increase your costs, and like everyone else, we're trying to do LEED certified, at least silver certified on every building. And it creates a whole different level of administrative burden for both the construction side and then the management side.
You know, and that's an interesting thing with the reduced parking ratios, because it used to be that the county would say, all right, you're going to have to park a project at 1.8 or 1.6, and then that was really challenging for the developer because they'd either have to lay in another level of below-grade parking, or they would have to, you know, take more of their landscaping and create parking spaces. And now they've completely flipped over and they're saying things like, okay, now you can't build more than 1.2, but the requirement from your residents or your renters might be 1.3 or 1.4, so you know you're going to go in with a project that's already underparked. And I think we all know in this room that a project that's underparked is not a project that people want to live in.
Right.
So it's, you know, we've actually had to go back and literally show show the county officials, you know, how many cars we have in our properties, so that we're not underparked. So that was sort of an odd switch.
And Arlington's moving to even 0.7 is what they would really like to get to, and you're thinking,
0.7.
Are you
Yeah,
kidding?
it's crazy.
Have you noticed, though, that the parking requirements have been reduced at your communities? It's been a shock to me. Look, I live in Texas where we have lots of land, so
Lots of cars.
Yeah, lots of cars. So the 0.7 is, you know, would never fly there. But
Yeah.
we've built parking structures that, when we've built them, I thought that will never work.
Yeah.
It's too small. And today we have excess capacity. There is, I think,
absolutely.
I think it all depends
in
upon the
DC
TOD.
in-
I think it's
in-
the concept of getting
yeah.
people to use mass transit.
But there are still challenges from a marketing standpoint if your property is underparked. And your residents
the
are
kiss of
ripping their
death.
lips off. They're
Yeah.
they're not happy.
But I will say in downtown DC, and Julie would probably see this, and Sue and I share a building that I leased up and that she bought, where we had plenty of parking, and we couldn't fill up the parking. Half
Yeah.
of our residents either only took the subway or they kept their car at their office because they
Right.
didn't want to pay for parking twice.
Yeah.
So I think when you get into really urban locations, you're definitely seeing that parking reduction. Even close in Arlington, we see it a little more. I'm not sure we're at 0.7,
Yeah.
but you definitely don't need 1.7 anymore. So I think you are starting to see some of that. But as you get into some of the outer suburbs where they're still trying to push it, it's more of a challenge because then we are underparked.
Sure.
I think there's a change in our residents, though, too.
That's it. I mean, I think what we've seen is our households, you know, we used to be at 1.5 residents per unit, and now we're closer to 1.3. So your parking ratio really follows your household size, particularly if you're not served by public transportation. So like here in Baltimore, for instance, unless, you know, if you live here and you work here, maybe you can get away without a car. And we have Uber now, and how many are you familiar with Uber? Get that app on your phone. It's like having a private driver. It's really
nice.
fun. So now Baltimore has Uber. So you could conceivably, with Zipcar and with Uber and with, you know, living in one of these apartment buildings and working at the Legg Mason building, maybe you could get away without a car. But if you don't have transit, you're, you know.
Yeah, transit is clearly
key.
the issue. And there's some recent data that car companies are starting to really struggle.
Yeah.
That the current demographic that's living with us, typically the Gen Yers and Gen Xers, are choosing not to purchase cars. So that's become a huge issue as well.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about existing buildings. So what are you finding that you're doing in terms of retrofitting existing buildings that either you're required to do or you've chosen to do on your own? And I'll start with Sue on this one.
You know, the things that we're focusing on are existing buildings, in addition to just daily operations that I spoke about before, are the things that have the biggest impact. So, you know, lighting, garage lighting, we can go in and make a big difference there. So we've had 10 communities where we've totally redone the garage structure lighting. We have 7,000 units where we've gone in and retrofitted the interior and exterior lighting both in the units and in the corridors. You know, we've put in things like model minders, easy stuff that, you know, turns the electricity off when you're not in there. We've put in fluorescent bulb recycling in those communities. We have, let's see, you know, obviously looking at roofing when we're changing out the roofs, which you don't do very often, but you're putting in much more energy efficient roofing systems. We have 35,000 units now that have fill masters in the commodes. We've installed intelligent irrigation control systems on 5 communities around the country, and have really had amazing results with that, and looking at expanding that program to a much higher degree. And when we've done landscaping, we've done a lot of drought-tolerant landscaping. So those are the kinds of things that we've been able to do on existing buildings. And when you're replacing appliances, certainly you're putting in Energy Star appliances, but things that have a direct impact on the bottom line.
Any help from utility companies on some of your retrofit
Certainly you're
initiatives?
seeing help from some of the electric companies and some of the water companies on paying for the lighting and for paying on commodes, more efficient commodes. There are a number of power companies that also have the programmable thermostats. Where we've used that in the past, it's really been on new development. We have not gone back and on a existing building and put those in, but there's help for that as well.
Steve, what about you? You're in a building spree, and everything's brand new construction.
We've approached that problem a little bit differently than some. We have taken the conscious, or made the conscious decision to sell our older assets and not retrofit. We don't do it well. We don't think we have the capacity with our construction group doing as much as they are on new development. We try to keep our portfolio at about a 6-year age. So we sell 1/6 of our portfolio a year, develop or acquire new. And so we've, on some of our more trophy assets, downtown Chicago, Austin, those we are doing retrofits, and we have done much like what Sue has outlined in her presentation. And we just feel that we are not good at that. Even though there are 12 federally funded programs to help you on your utilities, there's 253 local municipality and programs, and there's 1,193 utility company programs that people can use to retrofit their buildings. But we have made a conscious decision that we want to stay newer and lower our costs through being newer than trying to retrofit our older assets.
Okay. Cindy?
We are doing a lot of what Sue's doing, but in addition, we are doing the programmable thermostats, and we're able to do all of that through, at least in Maryland, through the utilities. They're doing those at no cost to us, so we go in and we replace the light fixtures, we're replacing the thermostats, and we've seen that make a big difference. We're also doing the same thing on the water side, whether that's with putting in new aerators, doing plumbing, redoing toilets, all of those things that help with the water consumption. The other big thing is the submetering. Even in existing buildings, we've gone back in and done submetering, and we see a 25% drop in our consumption. Suddenly, any little drip you have, we'll hear about, and people are, they're not taking 30-minute showers anymore because they're suddenly paying for the water. So that's made a big difference. The other thing that we focused a lot on in our properties is recycling and getting our residents to recycle more. That's the biggest challenge. If you don't make it convenient, they won't do it. Right. And so we use services. We've done things in our trash rooms, anything that we can to help. And one of our sponsors here, we use Valley Waste at a lot of our properties, and that has made a huge difference. We see our recycling go up about 50 to 60% if we put them in place, because they pick it up at the front door.
You make it simple for the residents.
Make it simple for the residents, and they will do it.
Sue and Cindy, you both talked about programmable thermostats. What are the challenges from the resident side, since most of them can't program at the old VCR? How are they doing with programmable thermostats?
That's probably the biggest challenge. As with anything, when we put something new in with residents, it's training. And a lot of times it's our service guys taking the time to walk them through. We've done some things with, not only do we send out written notification, we put pictures. Pictures help a lot, show them how it works and what it should look like when they're finished. But some people will choose to program their thermostat and use it properly. Others will just use it like a regular thermostat. So it's really, I think the biggest challenge on the multifamily side is we only control so much of what we can do on the consumption side. It's encouraging our residents to do it, and that's probably our biggest challenge.
Yeah, you install water-saving devices, and the resident goes in and
Takes them out.
Takes them out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Needs to be intuitive. if it's not intuitive, it just doesn't get used. You know, we do a lot of effort on the move-in to educate our residents on how to use the tools, and they may remember it for a while, they may not, and then, you know, with the turnover, it's a constant education process. We have a building in Dallas with a very sophisticated building management system where the resident can really do a great job of measuring their utility costs. They can do it from their office. They can do it from anywhere. They can compare their costs to everybody else's, all the rest of the residents anonymously in the building, and really, you know, control and have transparency into how they're spending their dollars. Gets very little use because it's just too complicated.
Yeah. Well, you know, we've, on a couple of properties, we've played around with a Nest. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Nest. And it's really fun, it's really easy, and our service guys can install them quickly, and then our residents can actually manage their usage right from their smartphone. And that's actually a really fun, simple, cute little device, and that's been in a community with a lot of younger renters has been widely accepted and quite
Interesting.
popular.
One
Yeah.
other thing that we're doing is we've started doing is YouTube videos on our YouTube channel that show them how to use
That's a good
the
idea.
systems, because to Sue's point, you can train them on it, but they might not use it right away, and so
Right.
if you've got some place for them to go and watch something quick and simple, that helps as well.
Julie, anything to add on the retrofit side that hasn't been spoken about?
No, but you know, the one thing I will add, because I think that you made a really good point in the hundreds of programs that are out there, sustainability requires focus, and it has to be someone's job to be able to figure out what programs are available and how to execute. It's not something that you can task your regional management team with doing, and so we're finding that we're having to staff up in this department, and you know, it's sort of depending on the size of the portfolio, you need a few people working on this, and so those are new jobs that we didn't have 5 years ago that we have now, so it's increasing overhead, and we're finding that it all sort of falls under this program. The one thing that I'm very interested in doing, because like Cindy said, the non-smoking buildings have been really popular. Residents really appreciate, just the way we appreciate being in a hotel that's non-smoking. And I know Scott has actually transitioned, I believe, all your properties, Scott, to non-smoking. And I'm hoping at some point that Scott might be able to share how he did that, because it's easy to open a building as a non-smoking building, but transitioning either an apartment community, a garden community, or a high-rise into a non-smoking building, I think, is trickier. And that would appear to be sort of low-lying fruit if we could figure out a good recipe for doing it.
Particularly since Scott's in tobacco country,
Yeah.
which makes it even
If you
more
can do it in
interesting.
North Carolina, you can do it anywhere, right?
Another place where we've tried to change a building that was opened differently was in Southern California, where the municipality required it.
Right.
And there it was fine, but I like you, I'm worried about trying to change a building that.
Yeah, and they're talking about doing that in Montgomery County in Maryland, too. They're sort of making noise about, now that they've decided they can't get rent control passed, they're making noise about transitioning to non-smoking buildings.
Yes, that's right.
So.
They'll find some new way to terrorize
yeah.
us. So.
Interesting. How many of you have staff dedicated specifically to sustainability and green initiatives alone?
I have a
Obviously,
sustainability manager, and it's in my maintenance and technical services. So I've got my lead guy, particularly in purchasing energy. We've got a few people working on that. So I would say I probably have one full-time and 2 people that spend maybe 30 to 40% of their time working on sustainable initiatives.
And I'm guessing you haven't eliminated positions in order to create positions for these guys. These have been ads.
No.
Or women. In
These are new
whatever
chairs.
case. Okay. Sue, how about you?
We don't have anybody dedicated. We've broken up the work, so, you know, buying the energy falls into our asset management group. The sustainability initiatives on site falls into our maintenance and service technician guys. So we have somebody dedicated on or somebody whose responsibility on the new construction side is to think about it, but that is not 100% of their job. So we haven't found one person that can do new construction, do energy, and do the maintenance side.
And on the new construction, it is the developer's responsibility to ensure the LEED certification, so it falls under them.
Steve? Up.
Well, after 2007, we certainly understood that the utility equation needed to be looked at differently. It had always been a purchasing process where we thought we could get the marginal savings from buying the utilities correctly. Well, we came to realize that it was a management process, and so we went on a hiring spree. We hired Brennan Booms, who is here, who is our energy manager, who regulates and reviews all of our green dashboards on a daily and weekly basis and works with our provider, our billing provider, to make sure that we have the historical data. We hired a person with a master's degree in building sciences to help us on our service side. What LEED has done is it certainly made us relook at the people we were hiring on the service side, and we understand that the sophistication of those individuals or the need for sophistication has greatly increased, and we felt it was our responsibility to train these people that have been a part of our maintenance teams for so long to understand what that was. We've also hired a mathematician out of Northwestern to on the billing side to look at how we are spending and buying and billing and what that impact is into our residents. And then we sent all of our development partners to LEED certification classes. So we have 18 people on the development side that are LEED certified, 4 on the operations side. And so we are making the commitment to making sure that we understand the management aspects. And in 2008, we took all of these development people that all had master's degrees and MBAs, and we said we have nothing to develop, and so we put them on building a green dashboard for our company, which we presented to Fannie Mae and some other large institutions as a part of their ongoing process of evaluating utilities. We're still using that. We're going into our second phase of that green dashboard, but what it has allowed us to do is to find issues on assets quicker so that we can address meters that are out and irrigation issues and things like that on a more rapid basis.
Interesting. Very interesting. Cindy?
Like Sue, we've kind of spread the wealth.
Okay.
So our development teams, on the development side, they have done the same thing as Steve's. They've gone to training. We have several people that are LEED certified. On the management side, we've put most of this under our service operations group and asked them. Some of them have gone to LEED training, and we continue to look for ways to train them. I do agree with Julie. I think at some point you're going to end up with a sustainability person because there's just so much more that keeps coming. And now with our clients asking for more information, but at this point that's what we're doing. And then we actually have our numbers guy, our CFO, looking at the energy piece of it because he's so focused on the numbers anyway. And so he's become kind of our expert on the energy side in buying bulk purchasing of energy.
Okay, so we're hiring engineers and sustainability experts and mathematicians.
And also it's impacting the service guys that we hire. The systems that we're putting in on our facilities are much more sophisticated than they've been in the past. And so you need to hire a much different level of experience on your service technicians as well.
Well, you've segued into my next question. Let's talk a little bit about staffing. Obviously, we have challenges with staffing on our properties already, as well as at the corporate level. But this whole layering of green and sustainability has created some challenges from a staffing perspective. How are you training your leasing people and your managers differently? And what are you doing differently on the maintenance side? And where are you going to find all these people? How's that for a long question? Who wants to tackle that one first? So you started with your technicians.
So with respect to training, we decided a couple of years ago that, there is resident turnover and there is associate turnover. And so we needed to make certain that we had systems in place to be able to continue to educate our teams. And sustainability is not one and done. It's evolving and you need to keep up with it. So we created an in-house training program. Like Cindy said, we are using a lot of videos so that it's available on demand. We have our own in-house sustainability training. We also use videos for use with training our residents. But it's a challenge, and to keep up with it is you use as many outside resources as you can, but it's not easy.
Where are you finding your maintenance people for all these sophisticated buildings that you're running?
We're finding a lot of people that are coming from outside the multifamily industry. A lot of associates, maintenance associates who have worked either in office buildings or retail are used to working with more sophisticated building systems, and so we're borrowing from those industries.
Which means your salary costs are going up
Salary
dramatically.
costs are going up dramatically.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. I would say it is training, and one of the things we've done even on the leasing side is we use little Klingons is what they're called, but they're the little bubbles that say this is an Energy Star appliance, things that remind and our leasing people to talk about the energy savings. We put it in our move-in packets. We have it, in our training. So all of the things that Sue's talking about. And then on the maintenance side, it's always been difficult to get maintenance. It gets more difficult. So part of it is training your existing teams and giving them opportunities to try some of these new things. But I do believe, I think that the salaries for service teams are going to start exceeding salaries in your offices.
Yeah.
Because one, they're just so difficult to find, and two, we are having to go outside the industry to find them, and the salaries are higher.
Are you using vendors to do some of the training? So the people that are installing your systems are being asked
Absolutely.
or are offering to do training on your behalf?
Yes.
So those of you that are our supplier partners out there, you need to beef up your training departments as well, because we need your expertise. Okay.
Yeah. And, and then there's, other things that we hadn't talked about, using low VOC paints and using recycled carpet and pad and that sort of thing. Those are all talking points. But, it's product knowledge, and so, if you have a green building and you have some nuances in your building that are very unique, that would be, like having a yoga room or a fitness center or some other service. So I think it's product knowledge. But we've been really happy about the quality of service people, primarily men, but some women, that we're getting out of the military. Mm-hmm. And they're very, very technically strong. And they're looking for a landing pad right now, and they're looking for a place where they can hang their hat for the foreseeable future. And so we're pretty excited. Obviously we're in the Washington, D.C. area, and so we have a lot of really good, programs that transition people from the military into our industry. But I highly recommend you look into that, because it's a great source of talent.
That's an excellent point. A quick commercial. The NAA Education Conference in June is in San Diego, and on Wednesday we will be doing a military job fair in San Diego. Cindy's chairing the conference. You want to add anything to that?
If you haven't signed up, please register today before the rate goes up on Friday.
And no hotel rooms.
And no hotel rooms. So we've added hotels, so there are now hotel space, but we are running out. But as Alex said, there will be a career fair, and that is open to both management and management companies, as well as our supplier partners, because these men and women are looking for jobs in the industry. It doesn't necessarily have to be within a management company. And as Julie said, they're great hires.
Yeah, many years ago, I managed nursing homes and that have fairly sophisticated systems. And my best maintenance service technicians came out of the Navy and came out of the military. So, I kind of echo what you say in that regard. Yeah. Steve, how about you from a staffing
I think we have an
standpoint?
obligation to the people that have gotten us to the dance, those people that were on our garden-style communities and things like that, to make sure that they have the education and the skills to move forward in this new world that we're facing in terms of these sophisticated buildings. So we're doing a lot in terms of scholarship dollars and getting them back into class, and trying to give some education, not only from our own group with the gentleman we hired out of Austin in terms of our sustainability person, but I think it's our obligation. The most interesting process that I have seen since we have gone nearly all LEED certified buildings, or at least we're developing them, is the education of the residents. The residents are our biggest challenge and our biggest opportunity, I think. When we started the LEED certification process, the number of people coming into the buildings to rent, maybe 1 in 10 had heard about LEED or even understood what the concept meant or what sustainability meant. That number is now beginning to get larger as people are becoming more aware of their environment. So we have taken our LEED certification specialist out of Atlanta And she does training courses at each of our new developments for our new residents and new move-ins, and we do those training classes each month, because what we learned is the residents would go in and close off the outside air intakes and do things on their own that would lead to not an efficiently operating building. So I think it's a two-front approach to the education process.
How well attended are your resident training programs?
Outstanding, 100%.
Really? Do you serve alcohol, apparently?
No, risk management would not allow us to do that. I would go if they were serving alcohol. No, we don't serve alcohol, but I think the more you educate your leasing people on selling it and making it important to them, and in fact, we used to have this laundry list of things that we wanted our leasing people to cover during the leasing process. And now that we've opened so many LEED certified buildings, we've now pared that process down to 3 major topics we want each one of those leasing consultants to cover, so that people understand those 3 concepts and will engage in the process and be a part of the LEED program.
Are you finding your residents are better educated coming in the door?
I think they are getting better educated. And once again, I think, Sue, it depends upon the area. Austin,
Austin,
very
yeah,
sophisticated.
it's very
you know, you and I
geographically,
compete very heavily in the Austin area. Very sophisticated in the state of Washington. Very sophisticated in Chicago. Atlanta,
Not so much.
Well, and I think it's also,
I think it's age-driven as well.
yeah, I think it's definitely age-driven.
Sure.
I mean, we find among our older residents, they understand green cleaning materials
Exactly.
cost more, green things cost more. But I mean, honest to God, our younger residents really don't know how much cleaning supplies cost at all, because they've never had to
Mom bought
purchase
it.
them before, so.
And they don't clean.
Yeah, they don't have any sense of perspective, and so when you say, oh, your utility costs are going to be lower in this building, well, it's meaningless to them because they don't even know what they should be to begin with. So, so we found that with the young, they're sort of high and mighty about thinking that you have an obligation to be green, but not that, that they have any obligation to participate. So I think it's going to be sort of an ongoing thing, but the older residents get it, and arguably, we've had buildings that are LEED certified that have a, sort of slant to a more mature renter, and I think we saw it in the rent dollars there, but not, not the young hipsters.
And I would agree with Julie. I think what's interesting is that the young hipsters are the ones that are going to come in and ask you about green. Do you have this? Do you have that? But they're not going to participate. They're not, unless you make it easy for them, they're not going to do it. They just want to know.
You're also not going to get more rent out of them.
And you're
for the
not
green.
going to get more rent out.
Well, I mean, my daughter she'll complain that we're not doing a good enough job recycling. She's 17, and then she'll take a 30-minute shower, I mean, like, she just doesn't,
Right,
they don't
there's no
fully
doubt.
connect the dots.
We'll hear about the gas guzzler vehicle and then the 30-minute shower.
Yeah,
My husband is
exactly.
convinced he's going to have to put a timer on the shower to get him out.
All right, let's do a segue then, because this is a good time to start talking about resident receptiveness to these things. But how are you marketing your green buildings? Those of us in this room understand LEED or various other kinds of building codes and programs, but to the typical resident coming in the door, how do you make that meaningful in a way that causes them to make a decision to rent with you or not rent with you, and what are those challenges? Steve, you're shaking your head,
Well,
so I'm going to
I
start with you.
agree. I think it's a very, very integral part of the sales process and a part of the marketing process, and we try to do as much as we can on promoting our green through our Facebook and Twitter and other social accounts, as well as our print and ILS advertising. But I think the real impact comes from visiting on site, and much like what Cindy was saying, we have green coins that are outline the different programs throughout the building that are LEED or led to the LEED certification. And then we have a huge green display board that looked like the Encyclopedia Britannica. At the very beginning, and we're now starting to get that wording a little bit more succinct and getting it more something that's observable, and we have now, instead of handing them a pamphlet about green, we have a book there that they can peruse or look at that's on green. So we're learning the process. I don't think we have it down to a science, but I think helping the leasing people understand the process, understand what LEED means. Even though I was on a tour in Atlanta on our new development there in Alpharetta with one of our star leasing people, and I pointed to one of the green coins that was down by the base of the entryway. And I said, what is that green coin for? And she says, oh, it's for our VOC paint that we use. And I said, that's interesting, because I was told it was for the floor mat there that you were to wipe your feet and take the debris off. So even as well as we've trained them, they have not quite got the story, but as long as people are buying the story, whatever that story is, I guess it works. But we're trying to get it down.
Well, and the tough part with that story is everybody's now kind of demanding the 6-second Vine video and the 140-character tweet, and you can't translate that information in 140 characters, so that makes it a little tough. Julie, how about you from a marketing standpoint?
Yeah, well, you know, it's the same sort of thing, and you can't sort of say you're green and then hand someone like a 10-page document, you know, so, you know, we're doing a lot with digital signage, and display boards are actually great. We had a property that we leased up that I think was silver. They might have gotten gold, but they were going for, they took a whole display board and they took a cross-section of a green roof, because most of the properties that have some certification will have a green roof, and green roofs are really sort of fun. So you sort of see them, so you see how they work, and you know, just really in layman's terms, the steps that have been taken to create a cleaner environment. Because the one thing that's really important if you're working on a new project that's going to be LEED certified, it needs to smell green and it needs to look green. So there needs to be the sense of freshness, because we think of green as being clean. And so I think that that's really important, that you sort of think about the subliminal nuances that will influence. And then we've been doing things like no-brainers, like having places where people can put their printer cartridges, and you know, places for people to put batteries, because I think we all know that we're not supposed to throw those out. Old cell phones, you're not supposed to throw those out. And most of the counties will have receptacles and places where you can put them, but, you know, who's got time? So you can sort of create a nice little service by just having a bucket that people can throw these things into. And I've been surprised at how much those kinds of little, you know, receptacles get used. So I think it's a combination, in addition to call-outs and that sort of thing.
Okay, Sue?
You have to make it simple. It's like the programmable thermostats. If it's not simple and easy to digest in a short period of time, most people won't absorb it. So we make certain that all the information is available electronically. So if somebody is really interested in it, it's all there, specific to each property. We celebrate Earth Day at our communities every year, and so, you know, we do different things in the communities, but we have the opportunity to come in and put in your electronic equipment that you need to have recycled, and something that is more difficult to do, so we try to do it that way. We create a little contest last year for Earth Day. For everybody who participated, we planted a tree. You know, the year before we had a contest about great recyclable or sustainability ideas, and we gave somebody, you know, a discount on their rent. So doing different things like that to try to engage. In addition to, you know, the sales team, you try to focus on. You're so right, Steve. You know, the list started at, you know, this long, and people can't absorb it if it's not simple. It's just not doable. We talk about the hipsters. I want to tell a quick little story. So, and about transit-oriented design. I have the perfect example of a non-hipster who was there, not probably for all the reasons I'm going to say she was there, but one of our properties in Austin was built next to the original Central Market. And Central Market, if you're not in Texas, is like a Whole Foods or a Fresh Markets or something like that. And so we actually, Lady Bird Johnson actually moved into our apartment. This was many years ago, 1995, so that she could walk to the Central Market, take advantage of being close to this fabulous grocery store, but not have to drive. So it's not just hipsters who care about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, it's funny you say that. The farmers markets are certainly big in this neck of the woods, and so and we charge, at least in Maryland, you charge 5 cents for a bag. So we've been giving out the reusable grocery bags when people move in, which is sort of a nice thing, and it's advertisement. There's also, you know, one of the things that we all hate in our business are those packing boxes that end up in your dumpsters and end up in your trash rooms, and there's a company that serves Boston and DC and New York, and they have these sort of recyclable bins that you see used a lot in commercial office moves that are really sturdy and easy to stack, and they will actually deliver them to a resident and then pick them up in their new apartment. And they're called repacks, and it's actually cheaper than buying all that packing tape and boxes and packing stuff. So that's been a fun program to be able to promote as well.
Interesting. Cindy, comment?
Yeah, one of the things that we are actually participating in, as Sue, Steve, and Julie said, it's talking about the simple things on the leasing side. And what we've also focused on is the things that matter to the resident, where it's going to Energy Star appliances, the smoke-free buildings, things that they view as value. That makes a big difference to them. But we're participating in the Green Games in Arlington County. They did this on the commercial side. They're now doing it on the multifamily side. And it's for both the building managers as well as the residents. It's a contest, and they can win prizes if they can reduce their consumption. And they get points for using mass transit, riding a bike, using their thermostats properly and programming them. And they get points for that, and then they get prizes as a result of it. So a simple way to get your residents involved and engaged. And then we're doing activities for the residents to help them find ways to reduce their carbon footprint. So
I've got a fairly large project-based Section 8 projects in Michigan, and it's interesting how you can get parents engaged in sustainability and green initiatives by teaching their children and having children's programs, and the children take that back and say, well, what about this? And so there are lots of opportunities for us to kind of improve on what we're doing. I still have lots of questions, but we've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to give people in the audience an opportunity to ask questions as well. So I'm not sure whether we have a roving mic or not. Bridget, I've surprised you. So if we have questions from the audience, would love for you to pose them now, and I'll look for someone to raise their hand or stand up, and Bridget will bring you a microphone. Bridget, and the gentleman in the back on this side. You could just stand up so she can find you. You really don't.
Appreciate everyone's feedback. I'm interested to hear more about the tools that you guys use to track energy, cost consumption, how you benchmark. I know the DOE folks here do Energy Star, but also you mentioned different sort of project initiatives. I heard irrigation and lighting. How you track that, and how you sort of measure that effectiveness of those things that you've done across your portfolio.
Okay, so interested in measuring. Okay. Who wants to take that one first? Steve, you've got a fairly sophisticated system.
Well, I'm not sure it's sophisticated. It's working well for us, and maybe that's because we understand it. But we, like I said, in 2008, 2009, developed a green dashboard that allows us to measure all of those utility costs, whether it is your waste removal, and we were able to make some very strategic decisions last year on condensing or reducing our waste loads. We carved off about $287,000 last year in terms of waste management costs. We're also now looking at our electrical costs. All of those things are benchmarked against our providers' information as well as our own. Our next iteration is going to be able to measure all of that information on a historical basis against our own performance and what each building should be doing, and then sending out email alerts to our managers and service personnel so that they can make the correct decisions. But we've been on the green dashboard for 5 years, Brennan. 5 years.
Is this proprietary, or
it's
is this
proprietary?
something?
We took it out to the market a while back, and there was some interest, but we didn't quite get it capitalized. but it's been very useful and has changed a lot. I think the biggest part of LEED and energy and sustainability is getting all of your employees to buy into the message and buy into the process by making it very visible on the dashboards and making it something that's on our AmliNet or our home landing page every day where they see their consumption. It changes behavior and changes the way that they look at their business. So it's been very successful, and I would say that's our biggest tool at Amli in terms of really monitoring and measuring our success. I think things have changed from purchasing to management.
So measurement's important. Any other people quantifying that in a technological way? Sue?
We have tried a few different benchmarking tools. The one that came out a while ago, Energy Star, we talked about it earlier. It's very time intensive, and the benefits have not yet met our expectations. So, but we've tried that. We are partnering with a number of our vendor partners to help us really measure our water usage, our electricity usage, and our waste. But we found that working with our vendor partners, we get better, more accurate results than we would if we were having our on-site teams input that information. So we're working closely with our partners to help that.
And they can also help with some of the reporting through Energy Star Portfolio Manager, which is a lot of work.
And they are.
Yeah.
And they are.
Is that what you're using?
Yeah, most of the institutions are using that.
Okay.
I was going to say, most of our institutions are using Energy Star, and then I think Sue said it earlier, it's clunky. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that using our supplier partners to help on the energy consumption has been a big help for us.
Yeah.
But I don't think right now, other than Steve's own customized program, there really is something out there that's easy to use, that's integratable with what we're already doing. Because the key for us is it's one more thing our people are going to have to do, and so finding a way to integrate that so it's less burdensome is really important to us. So right now we're outsourcing a lot of it.
Yeah, but measuring and quantifying is going to be key moving forward. There's
Yeah.
a gentleman here in the corner.
I'm not aware of the range of plans, but I'm a panelist with the benchmarking conference. And we're doing benchmarking and discussing automation and tools. So we're going to be discussing this type of automation tools in the benchmarking panel that's on the 10:30 conference meeting.
Good.
A little commercial for benchmarking. That's
Yeah.
good. Next question here.
Has any of the panelists done any LEED certification for existing buildings? I know we talked about redevelopment going forward, but anything on existing buildings?
So LEED certification for existing buildings rather than new.
We have not.
No.
We've not.
Nope.
Ellen? It's a little tough on the existing side to get those points, isn't it?
Very
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
Very tough.
I'll tell you one other thing that we've found. We talked a little bit earlier about institutional investors. We have some European investors in our fund, and from my experience, our neighbors across the pond have been focusing on sustainability for a much longer period of time than we have in the United States. And so through that organization, or through those relationships, we've actually participated in something that's the GRESB survey, which NAREIT is now also participating in. But our neighbors have really focused on a lot more of measurement and making certain that those measurements are audited and making certain that the people that are auditing those measurements are accredited. So, I mean, that is where we are headed. So benchmarking and the ability to really track what you've done is, in my opinion, where we're headed.
Okay.
Alex, can we ask Scott about the non-smoking?
Sure.
Scott, can we put you on the spot here? And tell us a little bit about how you transitioned your portfolio to non-smoking.
Let's give Scott a microphone so everybody can hear about Scott's transition of existing buildings to totally non-smoking.
I have some other members of my team here at the conference who've worked on this extensively, but we've transitioned somewhere between, I don't know, 40, 50 properties. It's a process that takes about 18 months. I have a slide presentation, actually, I'll be happy to share. It just gives you some pictures and, some bullet points and things. But we start with a survey of our residents. We can already tell you how they're going to come back. They come back the same all the time. Residents absolutely would prefer smoke-free housing. We have a small handful who are opposed to it, and they're not always smokers. They're just not necessary. This is something that's absolutely self-policing because the vast majority of your residents support it and want it and appreciate it. And again, I'd be happy to share the slide presentation, but it has a little bit of bullets in there on why we do it, what some of the reasons are. It's not just only about health, it also lowers your cost, it definitely lowers your potential for fires. Our history of large fires is primarily from what the fire department calls improper disposal of smoking material. So again, I'd be happy to talk to anybody about it or share the slides.
Thank you,
Great,
Scott.
thank you.
We probably have time for one more question before we have to wind up. Are there any other questions in the audience? There's a lady right here in the front. Bridget.
So when a unit or property is being marketed as new, have you seen that they actually charge a premium off of that particular rate as market concession to that? And what is the general percentage of the rate that you can increase when we're marketing that unit as a green unit?
The important question, how does the
Who wants to answer
green
that one?
translate to the bottom line from the standpoint of more rent?
Works-
Go ahead, Sue.
Works best if you can demonstrate that there's cost savings to the resident in the future. So if you can demonstrate that they will have lower utility costs because of systems that you've put in place, then I think you can charge a rent premium. I think we've talked about indoor air quality and fresh air systems. I've seen people willing to be more interested in a community, so more traffic and theoretically more leases because there are fresh air systems, but that is not something, as we talked about, that's going to reduce their costs. So haven't really been able to translate sustainable features into increasing rents.
I would agree. I think it's an indirect benefit. It helps you market, and you can market the lower utility costs and so forth. I will say that at a property where we had a smoke-free building and a building that was not smoke-free, the rents in the smoke-free building ended up being higher because more people wanted to live there. And as a result, the occupancy was higher, so we were able to push the rents there. That's really the only direct, tangible benefit I've seen. Most of it is the fact that you can market more, you tend to lease a little better, your occupancies are a little higher, so by that you do get some rent increase. But I don't think you could assign a premium to it.
I agree.
And you've got to train your leasing consultants to be able to translate those cost savings into a meaningful sales presentation so that the prospect understands it.
Well, the building management systems, if they are simple enough for residents to use and they use them, would give you all the information that you need to provide that direct, you can market it and your prospect may not be a believer, but if you can show them data, it helps.
Okay, in the world of 140 characters or less, pardon me, each of you gets an elevator speech of one sentence or two as to why sustainability and green initiatives have been important in your individual companies.
Are we waiting for one of us to start?
I'll start. I think it's really changed the way that we think about the business, the way that we approach the business, and the people that we're hiring.
Okay.
It's consistent with our company culture and our company message. I mean, it is consistent with the way we do business. It's just one more step in taking care of the way people live in our environment.
Okay.
I think we said it earlier, which is it is not only the right thing to do, it's where our industry's going, and so we need to embrace it, or we're going to be left behind.
And Julie, you get the last word.
It's our world to save.
Amen.
Amen. Please join me in thanking our CEO panel. I'd like to personally thank them for a great hour. We could have gone on for a lot longer. Just some very quick announcements, please, if you could just stay put for a minute. The evaluations are going to be emailed to the attendees. Please take the time to complete the surveys. We're going to take a short break. The education sessions will start again at 10:30. Lunch is at noon. Then we have sessions from 1:15 until 4. And we hope we see all of you at the reception at 4:15. Thanks and have a great day.